Encourage you with something out of 2 Corinthians chapter 9. Again, if you're on iChurch, greetings to you literally around the country, coast to coast. Got them all the way up to Canada, all the way down to Miami, all the way out to California, and all the way up into New York and New England, and all the way up into, as far north as you can go there, and across the pond in both directions. For some of you, we're heading towards, almost late Sunday, and for others of you, we're crossing the date line. We're over on Monday already, and so glad you're on here with us. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, but you can give safe and secure online as well, and let's worship the Lord together. And I want to look, this is such a familiar thing, but I want to share it with you because it's really, we started our month-long finance teaching on Wednesdays, which Connie just out the park, just bam, it was serious, yes. The sad part is she kind of pointed and then did it. It was like she knew she was just going to do it. So, verse 6, it says, so I'll be teaching on this probably towards the end of the month, but for right now, I just want to leak a little bit. Chapter 9, verse 6, but this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly. He which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposes in his heart, so let him give. And he says, don't do it grudgingly or of necessity because you've been forced to do it, or, etc., or because you have to. He said, for God loves a cheerful giver. Now, I'll tell you what, God loves a cheerful giver. But I will tell you this, sometimes you can give and your heart is cheerful, but your emotions are trembling. Sometimes God will speak to you to give something and you're like, do what? What, are you serious? No, wait, what, God? And that's okay. The issue is sometimes you have to summon your emotions to say, we're going to get excited about what we're going to do. And God speaks to your heart and say, this is what I want you to do, this is what I want you to give. And you have to summon your emotions and say, you know what, Lord, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it with joy. A lot of times we're obedient, but we're not willing. But you got to go from, okay, Lord, I'm going to be obedient, and God, I'm going to be willing, but now, God, I'm also going to be joyful. I'm going to be cheerful in this. So we give, and it's not a burden. We call this opportunity for prosperity, and that's true, but really it's opportunity for generosity. It's a chance to come along to say, you know what, God, I'm going to make it about somebody other than me. I'm going to make it about somebody other than me. And someone says, I ain't doing it. I got a plan. I'm taking Mom out later for Dos Locos Tacos. And they got them there, buy one, get one. And if I got enough money, I'm getting a chalupa. And that's it. You ain't getting it. And I understand that. And you know what? Thank God, and I'm going to get her the free fire sauce extra pack for Mom because she's so special to me. Well, that's fine. You do what you're going to do. But the offering, when we come and get a chance to give offering, is about others. It's about giving in a way that we don't get a return. In other words, well, Mom's been good to me, let me bless Mom. That's awesome. But this is about giving for the purpose of just being a blessing, of ministering to those in need, of spreading the work and the message of the gospel. And this is something that we not only do willingly, or obedience, but we do willingly, we do cheerfully. But verse 8 is what I wanted to see. It says, and God is able. Now, we could preach all day right there. Just God is able. He's able. All right, so anyway, but watch this. God is able to make all grace abound toward you, so that you always having all sufficiency in all things may abound to every good work. We're familiar with this idea that I'm going to give. Connie, before you write the check, can we talk? Mm-hmm. Okay, good, because I got something to... Okay. Oh, you can do whatever you want, or whatever the Lord's leading you to do. I'm just saying, I got an idea. I want to make sure we're, okay. We good? All right, it's Mother's Day. You give the offering. All right, good. She was writing a check, and I thought, the Lord spoke to me to give something. I want to see what He spoke to you is what He spoke to me. It's most likely what He spoke to you. Most likely. People always ask me, they said, would you like a receipt? I said, ma'am, do you see this wedding ring? Of course I want a receipt. I've got to turn that into accounting. Anyway, I'm accountable for this. I only look like an independent man. But we always talk about getting money back. I gave a lot, and I think God's going to bring a lot. But there's something in between that you miss out on, and you can catch it if you read backwards from the bottom of verse 8 up. Work good every to abound may. No, I'm sorry, that was weird. The end of verse 9 is that we abound to every good work. We get a chance to be a blessing. But before we can get a chance to be a blessing, the next part of that is that we would always have all sufficiency in all things. In other words, we would have our needs met, and then we'd have extra to be a blessing. So before you're the blessing, God does something to meet your needs. But before God does something to meet your needs, He does something else. He makes all grace abound toward you. It's really the grace that brings the sufficiency, that brings the abundance, that allows you to be a blessing. I'll say it again. It's the grace that brings the sufficiency that leads to the abundance that causes you to be a blessing. God, we think, Deuteronomy 8:18, we misquote it sometimes. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it's He gives us wealth that He may establish His covenant. That's not what it says. He says He gives us power to get wealth that He may establish His covenant. God didn't say, I'll give you wealth. He said, I'll give you power. And here, He doesn't say, and I will give you all sufficiency in all things, and you'll abound every good work. He says, I'll give you grace. And here's what I want to say. When you give, don't forget that after every act of cheerful giving, a grace is released into your life. Something is breathed on your life from God that will lead you to a place of enough, and it'll lead you to a place of extra. And I think a lot of times we give saying, all right, Lord, I gave, where's my money? I gave money, where's my money? And we missed. We walked away from the table, leaving that thing He breathed over our lives, on our lives. It's just a grace. And that grace works in our lives in many forms. It comes in an idea, it comes in a concept, it comes in an inspiration, it comes in a connection. But I think a lot of us are leaving something on the table when we give. And what I mean leaving on the table, you talk about negotiation, I wasn't going to leave anything on the table. It's like you're buying a car, and the car comes with 2 years of free oil changes or whatever. And so you buy the car, you shake hands, and you walk out. And as you walk out, you go, wait a minute. Hey, I was supposed to get oil changes? What? I'm not going to leave anything on the table. If it's included, I want to make sure I get it. Connie, and she talked about it some Wednesday, but Connie loves a bargain, And when we first got married, she really loved a bargain. I mean, like loved a bargain. Like I think was owned by the bargain, right? So I'll give you an example. Connie's a sleeper inner. She's a sleeper inner. She's up at the crack of 11. When does McDonald's stop serving breakfast? Yeah, that's when that's her thing. Now as a mom, you just can't do that, right? It's just up and at 'em. So, but if left to her own devices, she would just not be moved, which is really weird because I'm an up and at 'em. I'm like, it's dark, and I'm like, let's go. So which creates all sorts of noise issues, and I'm trying to be quiet and all that other kind of stuff. But Connie will sleep in. If we're traveling or whatever and we don't have like a session to be at, or if the session's not till night or whatever, Connie is like, my kids are not here, nobody's knocking on my door, nobody's asking me for anything, I want to sleep. And I do my best to really be quiet, She's a sleeper inner, unless the hotel has free breakfast. Because even more than being a sleeper inner, she's a get-a-bargainer. And there have been many a times early in our marriage, now it's not the same way now, but early in our marriage, there have been many times when I know my wife, we were married, we didn't have kids, I had to be real quiet because she's going to wake up, just stretch, and it's glorious. What time is it? Oh my gosh. And she knows, she's the only person I know that looks at the watch and knows exactly how many hours of sleep she got. She says, 10:30, wow, I got 12 hours. I mean, she knows exactly. I'm like, who even pays attention? She watches the clock when she closes her eyes, and she knows exactly how long it was as she opens her eyes. It's her accountant, inner accountant, right? But I've seen her many times on the road. They say, yes, and here's your keys, and you're on the 5th floor. And by the way, we have free breakfast 7 to 9 o'clock. And I've seen her. I remember when we first got married or whatever. I know the princess is sleep. She's got a lot of beauty sleep. It takes a lot of sleep to look as princessy and beautiful as she does. But I was one time, I went to a place and I was brushing my teeth early in the morning trying to be quiet. She bust in, washed her face, brushed her teeth, can barely see. I said, where are you going? She said, breakfast is until 9 o'clock. I got to go. Next turn. Why? So I'm not leaving that on the table. She said, I paid for it. It's included. I'm getting that breakfast. What am I saying? There's part of the transaction of giving that we often ignore. It's ours, but we don't even pay any attention to it. What? That when we give cheerfully, God says, I'll release a grace on your life. And we've been missing out on saying, God, I thank you for the grace that just came into my life. Well, you're getting ready to give. Many of you are getting ready to give. A bunch of you are getting ready to give. A bunch of you are getting ready to give cheerfully. And what I don't want you to do is you give, you put it in the basket and say, well, Lord, I thank you that money's coming back. There's something else that happened. He says God is able to make all grace abound towards you. And that grace will lead you to all sufficiency. That sufficiency will lead you to be in a blessing. And I don't want you to leave that on the table. There's free breakfast that comes to us as a result of this giving transaction. And Lord, if you have provided it for me, I receive that in my life. I receive an inspiration, a connection, some sort of wisdom, some sort of idea, some sort of favor, some sort of thing that comes to me. I receive all grace abounding toward me, Lord, and that grace will lead me to him. So what we want is lead me to abundance in every good work. No. Give me the grace, because that grace is what will lead me. And I'm not talking about grace that happened on the cross. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that God breathes something over every time we're a cheerful giver. God just breathes something over our lives. There's just a grace that comes on our lives. And so this is the first day of the week. You're going to go tomorrow. Monday, many of you will be working. Some of you work today, but many of you work Monday through Friday. And you're going to go and say, you know what? I've got a grace on my life this week. Why? I'm a cheerful giver. And the one thing God says is that when I give cheerfully, He makes a grace abound toward me. So I'm automatically expecting ideas, concepts, insights, connections, hookups, places to go, favor. What happened? I'm not leaving my oil changes on the table anymore. I'm not leaving the free breakfast on the table anymore. God, I believe you for the money and the harvest and everything else, but what I know I got when I gave was a grace that was released into my life. God is able to make all grace abound toward me, that I would have all sufficiency for all things. So let's do that now. Let's take a moment and hear from God. Father,